groundswell in this country, you know, that produced, I mean, which was denominated by the change mantra. And you could see that there was a groundswell of opinion in the direction of change. Nigerians expected change. Now, I don't think that change has happened, and that's a long story. But this is my question. Do you think the fact that today we have as president somebody who had always been an active participant in the quest for good governance, even better governance, somebody who has been a pro-democracy activist even before he became governor, and somebody who gives us the record, and we know of some of the things that happened in Lagos, you know, fairly useful. Do you think that he can turn around the situation that this country is in today? I must ask you that question, Mr. Farotimi. Is there any chance at all that if we are going to live by what he says, we can begin to turn the direction in a good or a better trajectory? Mr. Farotimi.
You know, one of the things that we have been very successful at doing is for our false narratives. We have created compelling lies that we have deluded ourselves into accepting as truth. One of them is where you started your question, the lies of 2014, 2015. I remember, not everybody bought into those lies. I remember very clearly that the essay that titled my first book, Do Not Die in Their War, published by Guardian on the 7th of February 2015, before the election, I said very clearly that there is an illusion of change being marketed, and that all you actually need to do to realize that it is delusional to believe in this lie is to look at the high table whenever they are talking about the APC. That each and every one of the persons sat on the high table is directly responsible for where we were as at that time. Nothing has changed between 2015 and today. Let's be clear about something. You said that the man had done some things in Lagos that should suggest to us that perhaps we'll see some changes in Nigeria. I put it to you, sir. Lagos is the 5th largest economy in Africa. I'm being told by multiple economists. What is it about the services and infrastructure in Lagos is suggestive of it being the 5th best in Africa? Is it the healthcare delivery system? The man built Lagos, quote and unquote, but he hasn't built a single healthcare facility in Lagos in 20-something years that is capable of treating his own many ailments. That is one. In Lagos State, for every government classroom, for every classroom built by the Lagos State government, and I'm not talking about those built in the last 20-something years, I'm talking of those that have been built from the inception till date. For everyone, there are at least 4 private classrooms. That is telling you the total failure of the educational system in Lagos is completely, almost completely privatized. The ones that are in existence are so degraded that nobody who can afford it will send their children to those schools. That is what had been built in the last 25 years. When you now begin to look at the road infrastructure in Lagos State, my neighborhood, the Lekki-Ekpe axis, they've been building the single road in and out of my neighborhood for over 16 years. It's not been completed. It's a nightmare to travel that road. Those are the examples you have to look at when you begin to look at what he might be able to do at the federal level. The finances of Lagos State remains one of the most opaque in Nigeria. What is happening is that in the midst of the rot that Nigeria has become, we've been pointing to the lies and propaganda being told of a Lagos that has been built and that will be replicated at the federal level. They'll point at some moribund rail lines. Let's talk about that. 16 or 17 years at God knows how much inflated cost they built the blue line. They're talking about a red line now. Question is, how much of that red line actually belongs to the federal government? How much of it was built by Lagos State government? At what cost? Fact of the matter is that if we actually look to the evidences of our eyes and we look to what we see within the state that the man has superintended for over 20 years in one form or the other, whether as governor or as godfather. Reality is that he should tell us that we should expect nothing in Nigeria. And the evidence of the last 9 months are unimpeachable and cannot be denied. I know that the convenient excuse is always that Buhari had damaged it and is repairing it. But who brought Buhari? Who was the chief marketer of Buhari in 2014, 2015 when the change lie was sold to Nigerians? The fact of the matter is that until we all come to the knowledge of the fact that nobody is coming to save us but we ourselves, nothing is going to change. And there is nothing that has been done by this man to suggest that we should expect anything positive. In fact, we should brace ourselves for more to come.
Wow. Well, I mean, Mr. Fautimi, you know, quite a very compelling argument that you put forward there. And I hope as to the questions that you have put out regarding the red ray and the blue ray, that we'll be able to get a little bit more clarity about it. One last question before you go, Mr. Fautimi. So, do you subscribe to any kind of political reforms, you know, that might help the people to get out of what is clearly you know, something that is not worth the while, you know, based on your description?
Let me tell you this. You can speak to political reforms in a society governed by law and that is rule-based. But this is not that society. What has happened is that with the ascension to office of the man known as Bola Ahmed TINUBU, an INEC that advertised beavers, transmission of election results from the polling unit level, unilaterally turned around and talked about glitches, and the courts decided to be legalistic in interpretation of clear provisions of the Electoral Act. So today, what the courts have said is that the INEC does not have to transmit results electronically. So we are back in a situation where someone like Wike is appointing his person as an INEC commissioner. So we are in a situation where whatever INEC says is the result is the result. And if you are now saying that we should look to reforms, question is, who is to reform our situation? Can we depend on beneficiaries of electoral highs to then reform themselves out of power? It is next to impossible. I have spent my time since after the election seeking to educate the Nigerian people to understand that they are the only ones who can rescue themselves from this mess. Nigeria is already headed almost inexorably towards a catastrophe. But the reality is that if the people are not carefully educated to understand that they are not each other's enemies, that the real enemies of the people are those who have ruined this country and placed us where we are, we will end up in an implosion. I fear that. I run away from that, and I seek to educate the people to understand that Chinedu, Ngozi, Wasiu, Kule, Nodu, or Aminu, those are not the enemies. The enemies are the beneficiaries of this system. This system has to end one way or the other before Nigeria can be rescued. The beneficiaries of this system, both within and outside Nigeria, are taking too much pleasure, and they have no deterrence. They have nothing to gain from reforming it. They've successfully weaponized ignorance and poverty against the people, and they are they are so hard-headed, they cannot even see what is in their own enlightened, selfish interest, and they believe that they can sustain this evil reign. But I know human history has told me that this is not sustainable. My worry is that we don't end up in a cataclysmic situation. That is my sole worry. But to expect any change or self-reform from this system is delusional. It's not going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Fautimi. And
thank you very much.
I really appreciate your time and your comments. Your comments will make me intensify my prayers as a pastor and make me intensify my work as a journalist, because we must have a great Nigeria in our time. Thank you so much. Inside